On this episode, I sit down with Pamela Devaney of the Ascend Group out of Denver, Colorado. Today, she dispels the biggest myths around PR, why it's a huge mistake to not add relationship building with journalists to your daily lead gen activities, and why getting published is absolutely the number one way to solidify yourself as an industry expert. As well, we'll talk about the magic of consistency. Now, before we get started, let's help you stay connected to top performing realtors across the nation by just simply hitting that subscribe button now. And without further ado, I'm your host, Shawn Kunkler, the founder of the Homeward Associates Group out of San Francisco. So we'll just kick it off. Super easy question. In a sentence or two, who are you and what do you do?
Well, I'm Pam Devaney, for one. I am a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a good friend to a lot of people, and I'm a real estate agent with Compass. The team that I am on is called the Ascend Group. We are here in Denver, Colorado. I work with some of the most amazing people. And I am also somebody who loves architecture. I love design. And what most people don't know about me is that I have a real heart for rescuing horses. So if I could have a ranch with 15 rescue horses and wake up every morning and check on all my various ponies, I would be very, very happy.
Is that why you moved to Colorado, the horses?
It's not really why. We were looking at Colorado as a great place to raise our daughter. I'm a California native, born and raised, Southern California, Northern California, had a few years living in Honolulu. But, I had a lot of business in Colorado. I would come in and out, and every time I was here, I would get back on a plane and I would say, if we lived anywhere else in the country, it could be Colorado. I loved the mountains. I love to ski. It's beautiful. It's clean. The air is wonderful. Yes, there's traffic, but it's not as bad as Southern California. And I did have a real desire to have more open space around me. So although we live in a beautiful suburban neighborhood, we are surrounded by outdoor open space. And I can see horses grazing. And, down the road, I think in the next 5 years, we'll be ranch owners. And it's a little easier to do that here in the Colorado market than perhaps Southern California. That's one of the reasons we moved here, but it's just a great place to do business. People are very friendly. They come from all around the country. So we find that, you're meeting people from Texas, Connecticut, Atlanta, Seattle. Colorado seems to be this tremendous draw for people from both coasts. It's just a great quality of life. And if you haven't skied recently in Colorado, I say you've got to get up because we had an incredible ski season. And there's a few resorts that are still open for the next few weeks.
That's interesting. So when you were in Southern California prior to moving to Colorado, were you practicing real estate there and then transitioned your business?
What I was doing right before we moved, I had taken a bit of a pause on my real estate career and had brought my public relations and marketing career up to the forefront. But I had been a licensed realtor in Colorado in California since 2006. And I was with a firm, a brokerage, Willis Allen, and they were very San Diego based, but many years of history, family owned, just a wonderful brokerage. So I enjoyed real estate. And we were, based in the La Jolla, Del Mar, Rancho Santa Fe, Carlsbad, Encinitas, all the North County, San Diego areas. And then when I came to Colorado, I thought, when the time is right, I will become licensed in Colorado and join Compass, which is what I did just a few years ago.
I feel like that's a slight unfair advantage going into the Colorado market with a PR and marketing background.
I think a lot of agents don't have a good understanding of what public relations is and how it can truly enhance their business. We think about marketing, we think about social, we think about direct mail, we think about, networking and being visible, and whether it's, still kind of classic one-on-one grassroots door knocking, or it's being a part of a large fundraising event. But the PR component itself can be an essential connection within your entire marketing plan. And so I hope we can spend a little bit more time talking about it today, and I can share some ideas. And, Yes, I do feel at times I have a bit of an unfair advantage because I understand how the public relations programming works, but it's not hard to master. With a few easy bite-sized pieces to get started, anybody can be successful in adding PR to their marketing mix.
So for people who may not be familiar with this, because realtors are usually really good at real estate, but we sometimes struggle with these different areas of the business. Let's unpack it. What is the difference between, let's say, the grassroots side of things to marketing to actual PR and how it all fits together?
If you think about a pie, and this is just really the simple way to look at it, and you cut it up into various, pieces of the pie, everybody will say, I love to be a marketing expert. If you carve out the public relations side, what I always like to tell people is there's about 4 key elements. One would be traditional media relations. That might be print publications, such as here in Colorado, in every major market, you'll have something like 5280. This is a beautiful regional monthly publication. Somebody that may say, I want to be able to be well known within the equestrian world. They might want to find an article in something like the Sidelines. It just, you have to look at it from traditional media, which will be print. That can be newspaper. It can be small community newspapers. It can be magazines. Then every publication today has a digital sister to the print. So now you've got the traditional print, you've got the digital piece, and then you can layer into that podcasting, blogging. You could add in writing a white paper or a bylined article. A lot of times we call those explainers, and there's a lot of great content-driven news sources now that you can add in your voice. And then last but not least, the most important thing for all real estate agents when they're investing in a PR program is to become that expert, to be that thought leader, to have a trend that you can clearly talk about with a lot of knowledge. When you can put all those together and then begin to network and to get to know members of the press, you become the person they go to. You become the person they call first to say, hey, Pam, I'm writing a piece on X. I think you're going to have some expertise here. Can I interview you? Can you be quoted? And then once you start building that rapport with your local press, with your national press, you really start to see a lot more visibility for your own personal brand.
That's concise. That actually makes a lot of sense. Would it be something, because people listening to this are going to be all over the map, from brand new agents who have very low transactional volume to agents who have been in the game for, let's say, 20 years and just crushing it. At what level would you recommend somebody starts introducing this?
I would recommend right away. And most people think that public relations is going to cost them a lot of money. And so maybe a new agent coming into the business may say, gosh, I can't afford this right now. But actually, we call PR and the media relations piece that we were talking about, that's earned media. There's no cost involved other than your time and your own resources. And so if you are going to buy an ad, or it's digital, it's print, you're going to print a postcard, you're going to create a direct mail campaign, you're going to sponsor an event, that is absolutely going to cost you some hard dollars. But what you can do is you can become familiar with all the news outlets in your market that are going to be speaking to the people that you hope to be working with, buyers and sellers, investors, whatever your, lane, your sweet spot is. And then you create a story about yourself. We are all great storytellers. If you are a real estate professional today, you are most likely gifted in the art of the narrative and creating the story around your listing, around your neighborhood, around the reasons why owning real estate is so essential. So all you have to do is create this own personal PR campaign, and then you have to be comfortable picking up the phone like you are probably doing it all day long, is outreaching to people. And you're going to call a journalist and you're going to say, hey, Bob, I see you write for Boulder Magazine, and I have some knowledge about some trends that we're seeing in the Boulder community. I'd love to take you out for a coffee, get to know you. And when you're writing a story about farmers markets in Boulder, I'd love to be a part of that. It doesn't cost anything other than your time. So I would say no matter if you are brand new coming into real estate or you're that crushing it 20-year veteran who has just a fabulous portfolio of clientele, it's never too early and it's never too late.
I love that. And you reminded me, I've actually written a few articles for different publications as well. The beautiful thing in doing that is you get to piggyback their SEO.
Oh, yes.
When people type in my name, those articles are rushed to the top of that list. And when your name is then associated with a publication that has a good stature or local authority, people just connect you to that authority and you get a bump up automatically right out of the gate, right before the phone even rings, that they're wanting to now call you and have a conversation about real estate or whatever it is. So yeah, it's funny that you're bringing this up. You've reminded me that I've completely gotten away from it when I'm busy. When business is good, we tend to just hunker down and focus on the clients. And when business slows, we tend to go into these other avenues. But we need to remember to keep watering these plants because they're important too.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot about consistency, just like your social media, engagement plan. People have so many schools of thoughts. Post twice a day, post every other day, post on Instagram, then add something to Facebook. If you like TikTok, make sure you're, ticking and talking. I'm not a big TikToker. Of course, my teenage daughter, lives and breathes on it. She'll sometimes film me doing something and say, Mom, I'm creating a TikTok. I don't find that to be where my particular clientele is.
Right.
On the traditional side, what we would consider earned media, you really want to be consistent. You have to be visible, just like you need to be visible to your sphere. You have to stay in front of the news media. There is, a great tool that somebody can draft. I think for the most part, people are pretty confident with content today. But if you're not, there's a lot of tools that you can get online and say, help me craft a good, solid press release. Let's say you have spearheaded a beach cleanup day and your brokerage is a part of that. You can create a press release and send that to the local weekly news outlet in your neighborhood. And now you have your name, your brokerage name, what you did for your community, a quote perhaps from somebody inside of the beach cleanup organization. And then at the bottom of that press release, we call it the boilerplate or the tagline. And that's where you get to have your short format bio. And then you push that out, or you distribute that out to all the news media editors or the news desk or a producer at the local broadcast station, the affiliates of, all of our majors. And you can send it out via email. You can use a service, and there's quite a few of them. Some are a little bit more costly than others. PR Newswire, PR Web, and then, sit back, wait a day, and then be bold, be confident, pick up the phone and call the editor and say, I just sent you information about our beach cleanup. We're hoping you can cover that. And yes, it takes a bit of time, but you then have consistency, your voice, your name, your brokerage name. It starts to resonate across multiple channels. And then when you pick up the phone and you bump into somebody at a school function or at the grocery store or at your local restaurant, they say, I read about you. I saw what you were doing. Wow, that's great. How do I get involved in that? And you're not talking about real estate. You're building a relationship. And so many people would say, well, I'm not good in PR. I don't know anything about it. That's publicity. Those are those people that are spin doctors. Oh gosh, I don't want anything to do with that. Well, really, PR is sales. It's just selling a concept, a brand, a person, or a thing. And so we are all our own personal brand and we're all our own person. But it's probably one of the aspects of my real estate career that I truly love. Great story. I was at our local coffee exchange where I live in my neighborhood in Castle Pines, and I bumped into the publisher of our local Castle Pines connection. We're both having coffee and we're shooting the breeze, and she goes, how's real estate? And I was able to tell her what I saw the market doing right now and what I saw my local community doing and, where some of the new building development was happening. And in that moment, she said, hey, we're doing a story on this topic for, where we're looking to spring and summer sales. Would you like to be a part of that? And of course, the answer is sure, happy to be a part. So all I'm telling people is give it a go and don't be afraid of it.
I love that you connected in there the consistency piece, because that, what I have found from talking to people time and time again on this podcast, everybody talks about consistency. It is by far the most important ingredient to success. And if we're time blocking our day or our week and we're allocating time to lead gen, if in that time you just dedicate 15 or 20 minutes to the PR piece, and then you consistently do that week over week, you will absolutely start seeing results.
It is absolutely inevitable. And the great part of it is you can make a long-term plan. I'm hoping we all have a business plan. I am sure we all have a marketing plan, whether we dust it off the shelves or it's in a nice, Dropbox somewhere, and we maybe pull it out at the end of the year. But if you have a consistent public relations editorial placement plan in your mind for 12 months, and every month you think about, it can be seasonality, holiday. Right now we're coming up on Mother's Day, summer vacation plans. You don't have to talk about real estate all the time. You can talk about for me right now, great camping sites in Colorado. I mean, you asked earlier what people may not know about me. I love to camp. I love to get, out in nature, to kind of let, be that more natural person and detach a little bit from our digital world. And it's where I rejuvenate. I clear out all the noise. And, but people usually would say, you camp? That's crazy. We don't see you as getting dirty out in the campsite, but it's truly one of my absolute favorite things to do in the summer months. So I'm putting together a bit of a blog post, an article on great camping sites in Colorado. And what's the trick to getting a site? Because unless you booked 6 months ago, they're probably gone. And there are these kind of backdoor tricks. So that's a news story right there. It's not about market trends. It's not about real estate. It's not about interest rates. It's not about the feds. It's not about our economy. It's not about do we have more in the market or less? It's not about supply. It's not about demand. It's about something that people are like, oh, how refreshing. Oh, you know what? We love to camp. And so I, put together your 12-month editorial plan. And if you are curious, like what, for example, this is one of my favorite, magazines, 5280. What are they going to be writing about in October? You can go online and look up an editorial calendar, and you pick and choose where you think you have expertise. Or perhaps they're doing a story on outdoor backyard entertaining. You can probably weigh in on something about a recent listing of yours that had an incredible outdoor space. Plot out your strategy. And then most importantly, know, and this is where everybody kind of forgets, unless you do this day in and day out and have been doing it like I have for 25 plus years, a magazine has a 3-month lead time minimum. A newspaper could have 3 days or 3 hours for breaking news. So plan your attack, plan your strategy accordingly. And if you want to be placed in September, make sure you're talking to them in June.
That's a great piece of insider advice. And I love the whole strategy about talking about other things. Talk about camping if you're a realtor. Talk about your travel and adventures. Talk about these other avenues, because in what I have found in doing sales for 2 decades is, especially in real estate, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. We're directly in conversations with clients, and clients tend to first of all, they'll hire you if they like you, and then everything else becomes details. 9 times out of 10, if you lose a listing, it's because they liked the other person better. That was it. Everything else was just a shiny widget that was associated or attached to it. And when people know more things about you outside of real estate, that's when they start personally connecting with you. It humanizes us. It only serves us better. That's what social media is. Social media gives us a preview into other aspects of our life. I had, actually, it was the very, very first podcast I had with Rebecca Donatelli, who said her social media exploded when she stopped just talking about real estate, when she started to introduce herself to the equation. So I love taking that formula and applying it to PR. It makes absolute sense.
When you think about good radio, good TV, good content in general, as long as it's authentic and it's relevant, maybe it's timely, educational, but most importantly, how do you connect the dots between something that you believe is important and something others will also find of interest? And that is that's the real gem of all of this on the PR front. If you become that authentic voice or that credible voice, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, as you just said, about the tangible, tactical aspects of real estate transactions. It could be something so tiny, like a little nuance that you mention on a social post or in an article or on your newsletter, that somebody has a personal connection to. Your phone may ring. You may get that random email from somebody you've known for 10 years, but they didn't think of you in the light of, oh, I'd love them to be my agent. And so I believe, we really, really have to be authentic and sometimes a little vulnerable in our ability to show ourselves, whether that's in print or podcasting or blogging or in your social channels. I have a former colleague of mine who's gone great guns in her championship of women in their 50s and beyond. She's the cheerleader for midlife women, and she's so passionate about this. And at first I said, oh my gosh, you're crazy. You want people to even know you're 50? Like, I don't want people to know that. But she's taken it to great levels, and her passion is so vivacious. And I think that as a real estate agent, if we can let people know what we're passionate about, we bridge a gap. We're not just that, oh my gosh, here comes the realtor at the mailboxes. Oh, I better run because she might think I want to sell my home. So it's just, you just make it your own. You just make it your own.
It's funny, that same math formula, it applies when you pick up the phone and you call a past client who you haven't talked to in years. My rule is ask them about their family, ask them about work, ask them about travel, ask them about everything else. And I guarantee by the end of that conversation, they're going to say, how's the real estate market? They're going to spin it back on you. You don't have to bring it up. You don't have to talk about it. If you just make it about them or their interest, or in this case, the other things that you're interested in your life, it connects dots. And if you look at my Instagram, it's definitely not well curated. I don't put too much love or energy into it, but I think there's maybe 3 posts about real estate. Everything else is about it's my life. And that's because I use it as a tool to connect with my family. And I just happen to have past clients and realtors following it. And so that's how I view it. And the business ones, their business, they talk about business, but on my personal stuff, it's me. I mean, it's my activities. It's what I enjoy doing, what projects and hobbies I have going on. And that's the way I approach it.
I'd like to talk about that with you because I, of course, have been following your podcast and listening to different guests. And I really like what a lot of people have said. And I know Sky at Compass was fantastic. And I think there's 2 ways of looking at social, and we can, talk about it for a little bit. Do you want to blend in your personal life with across the board in all your social channels? Or do you want to have, Pam in her personal life, Pam in her professional life? And I've tried it both ways. I believe, and I'm curious what you believe, where you think, the intersection of those 2 freeways really come together. What do you find, and what have you heard from, some of the most successful agents out there? Do they blend? Or do they separate? Or is it a hybrid, a little bit of a combination of 2?
That is a phenomenal question. I think it's super complex, but I would say it depends on the channel to start. And more often than not, it's a hybrid because we're hybrids.
Mm-hmm.
At the very beginning, I asked you who you are and what you do. You started with, I'm a mother. It wasn't, I'm a realtor and I sell real estate. It was immediately, it went to personal. Immediately, first thing out of your mouth. And then it it's slowly parlayed into real estate. And I think personally, the better social platforms are like that. And if we look at other people that we follow who are of interest, celebrities or your favorite baseball player or whoever, the more interesting profiles are not of them doing that same one thing over and over and over, but you're actually getting little snippets into their life. This is really funny, and you just reminded me of by asking me this, but I'm getting into overlanding, which is the 4-wheel drive version of camping, if people don't know. And I'm shopping for a car right now.
That's fun.
So I started YouTubing overlanding, and then I stumbled onto a channel that had Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds is a former professional baseball player for the San Francisco Giants. And it profiled his car, and it was him talking about how he built it and why he picked these things. And in watching it, I thought, that is so fascinating. This former baseball player built up this awesome 4-wheel drive, and now I put him in different light. And he has had himself some controversy around his career because he was accused of doing steroids and things like that. But what's interesting is in him doing that, it completely reframed him, and it was fascinating and interesting to me. So I would say, to answer your question, I personally find the profiles when they mix and blend to be more interesting than if they're just posting. If I'm following another realtor, if they're just posting, just listed, just sold, just listed, just sold, just listed, just sold, I unfollow them almost immediately.
I do too. It feels self-serving to me.
Yes.
It feels boastful in a weird way. It just feels a little, I think it's important when you have a new listing to at least definitely get that out there at least once.
100%.
But it doesn't have to be so repetitive that that's everything you are all about, because we are not all about just our professional lives. I mean, and there are some that maybe that is what's most important to them. But yes, when you asked me about who I am, I will always lead with my family, my faith, the things that are really, drive me, make me whole. When we moved to Colorado, and you asked, why we moved, it was just a lot of thought went into that process. I was the one that was gung ho, let's go. But my husband, of course, we're beach people. He goes, we surf, like we're not doing this. And so we traded our surfboards for skis, and I traded in my surfboard for a saddle. I have a horse. And so it was this ongoing joke about, gosh, I can't believe they're moving to Colorado, because yes, we lived at the beach, and yes, we spent a lot of time there. But I had a few months of what I would call the most precious, pure downtime in my career. I did take a few months off to literally get used to my neighborhood, meet my neighbors, be available to take a walk with somebody that I just met, or play pickleball, or go get a coffee, and really lean into my daughter's school and get her comfortable in her new school. At the time, she was in elementary. And I remember leaving for a business trip to California, and she called me ecstatic. And this was one of my I'll never forget the moment. It was one of my most this is one of the things I'm most I'm just proud of. Yes, I've had all sorts of other great career successes and have had story placements on the cover of the Wall Street Journal and the LA Times and things like that. But she called me up and she goes, Mom, guess what? You're volunteer of the month. And your name is bedazzled at the front of the building. And I was like,
I love it.
Like, I had never had that kind of time in my life to just do something that was so pure and simple and heartwarming. And I said, what do I get for being volunteer of the month? And she goes, you get your own parking spot right in front of school. And, there's just like moments in time where if we're not all about just the business of selling real estate. And so if we can showcase that in our social channels, in our thought leadership pieces, and everything else that we do, more and more people are going to get to know us. They will like us, they'll trust us, we'll become a great advisor to them. And when it is time to refer or to make the choice, they'll say, oh, I know who you need to call. It is Pam, it is Shawn, it is whomever.
I could not agree with you more. And I love that moment. It's such a warm and amazing moment to have.
And I did put it up on my social channels, for all that wanted to see. I'm now volunteer of the month.
That's amazing. I love that. And, in reflecting on my business and helping clients is we're matchmakers. We either match people to homes or we match our clients with people who can help them with their next move. I'm from Connecticut, so I have tons of family there still. And so when this was years ago, my stepsister called me and her father was having trouble selling his home. And she was like, can you help? We want to find another agent. Can you find the best match? And I got on the phone and talked to a handful of agents, and I wound up connecting them again, not with the person who had the most transactions or the highest sales volume or any of that stuff. Yes, that was important. Their experience and track record is important, but I connected them with somebody who I truly felt would have the fiduciary responsibility of doing the right thing, and they would actually take care of them equal to how I would take care of them. And so a quick conversation on the phone with them, you can get all these other data points and learn about their character, and then you can make that introduction. And that's where podcasts like this and social media, it's when people can get to know you on a different level, deeper level. It's not dissimilar of our best friends in life. We know much more than them than just their occupation.
Yes, way more.
Different data points about them. We know where their challenges are, where they find joy, their favorite places to travel. We know all kinds of things. And if we can do that and introduce that through the different avenues, PR, our brand, our branding, our marketing, it's only going to serve us, because like attract like every time.
Every time. And, I had the same experience. My sister and her family have moved to Virginia, and we were able to, complete the transaction of selling their home here in Colorado. And I thought, well, let me look through my, my referral network within Compass, which is quite significant. And I found a broker that had a team. And I just by talking with her and kind of, we all sort of take a look at everybody's social channels a little bit. And I read her website and I read her biography and I read some blog posts that she had posted. And I was able to, all those data points told me this would be a perfect match. Not only would she be that trusted advisor as a realtor to help my sister and brother-in-law find their new home, but she would also probably become a guide or let me introduce you to somebody else in your new town, your new community. And it was so heartwarming because they'll close in about 2 weeks on this property. It's a new construction home, and they've become friends with Sue and her husband. Like, they've become great friends. And she has said to me, oh, thank you so much for putting me in touch with my sister's name is Sue, but thank you for putting me in touch with Sue Smith. And I thought, wow, they've connected, they've become friends. And that is what this is about, connecting the dots for people and places. Somebody asked me the other day, how do you tell your story? How do you create your own personal branding? And I go back to a woman in San Francisco. Her name is Fran Zone, and she has a method called the Zone Method. But she taught me 20 years ago, create a word garden for yourself. But you can't really always do it by yourself. So ask people that you trust and that you respect to come back to you and say, these are the words that I would use to describe you if I was referring you or somebody was asking about you. And I did that many years ago, and I did it recently in a mastermind group of women that I'm a part of. And we went back out and we asked for between 6 and 10 words to describe ourselves. And what was fascinating to me is that the words that I would have expected people to use 10 plus years ago have changed.
Fascinating.
Yep. They're a little bit evolved. That's the better way to say it. They have evolved because I have evolved. And I know, in my 20s, 30s, 40s, I was, super hard charging and, had to be number one. And, my priorities were just in a bit of a different place, I believe. And I have softened a little bit, like I have maybe matured a little bit more. And what I was really pleased when I got my new words, my new word garden. I was like, wow, that's not what I would have expected. Some of it, I'm like, wow, that's spot on. Or, oh, I don't think that of myself. And so I recommend it highly to any agent, new or very seasoned, to create their own word garden. You can use it in your social, you can use it on your biography, and back to the bio on your website or wherever you use your biography. Have a couple people read it for you and have a couple people be brutally honest.
Yeah.
Because we can't all be number one, top producer, et cetera, et cetera. It's not authentic. And I hate it too. So you have, really dig into those biographies. I mean, they can either be wildly intriguing, like I need to call that person, I want to know him, or they can be a very timeout, like, oh, no, thank you. But the word garden exercise is fun. And I think it's important to ask a professional friend, a trusted advisor, maybe a family member or a client. It's fun. I've now done it many times over my 30-year career, but my most recent experience was truly fascinating.
I've never heard of the word garden. I love this idea. So when you're cultivating it, how many words are you hoping to come up with?
The perfect number is between 6 and 10. And they can be about how you are in the professional world, perhaps some of your character traits. If I was to say about one of my teammates, oh, you always want to call Jeff when you are seeking advice about X, because I have words to use now that will clearly position him and sort of enlighten his story. We all have those friends and we all have those people that we know that are the go-to people. If you need a landscape architect, you know who to call. If you need a painter, you know how to, we've got those little like Rolodexes. That's an old phrase. We probably don't even have Rolodexes anywhere anymore, but we have those connections and those connectors. And, people have always said to me, gosh, Pam, if you had a $5 bill for every time you've connected somebody, you could be retired by now. And I think, yeah, that's true. But I kind of do it out of the goodness of my heart. Like, oh, I know somebody for you and I know somebody for you. But I get a lot of joy out of doing that. And I do believe that, what we put out into the world comes back to us. And that's the energy. I want to be that positive light for others. And I'd rather give more than I receive in return. But when you're introducing somebody, and this is a great exercise, and it's kind of a PR spin on it. Mm-hmm. Think about it. Somebody says, oh, I'd love to meet Shawn. Can you introduce me? And I say, yes, I'll write an email. And then the day goes by and the next day goes by and the next day goes by. And then I see your podcast. Forgot to introduce Shawn to Mark. If I have my little word garden about Shawn, my email intro is so easy. And I know I'm asked often, hey, do you mind introducing me? Or, oh, I'd love to connect with that person. And if we can make it easy for ourselves, because in my mind's eye, I already have great words about you. You have an amazing presence, a wonderful voice. You're kind, you're authentic, you're genuine, you're easy to talk to. You're a terrific real estate agent and broker and, a team, and you live in the Bay Area. Like, I already can quickly think about that. But if others can't think about it for us, people don't know how to perceive you, how to introduce you. It takes time. And it's that thing you put on the back burner. I know you had another guest recently about follow-up and how important it is to follow up, how important it is to do what you say you're going to do in a timely manner. So once again, go back to that word garden about your teammates, your colleagues, your trusted advisors. Maybe that's an attorney or a tax advisor or somebody else. Like, we're always asked as a realtor, well, who do you recommend for this? Keep that book of business close and then be able to very gracefully give it out to others.
I really, really genuinely love this approach. Yeah, I love all aspects of it. And as you're sharing that, I have my boilerplate script email, and it's all my preferred lenders. It's my preferred escrow. It's all these preferred people, and all their contact information is right there, ready to go. And all I need to do next to it is just put about 6 words of why they've made it to this list. Why are they important for me to share their names? And to your point, the second somebody receives that, the level of trust, it's already building and built. And the person then knows how you actually feel about them, which I think is genuinely important.
It's essential. I was asked 5.5 years ago to take a meeting with somebody here in Denver. I knew a little bit about him, and I knew that he was very prominent in the commercial title industry. He ran a big title insurance, national company. But what I didn't know was how he connected with others. And somebody had said to me, before you meet with Tom, make sure you have an idea about who's on your 5th floor. And I was like, my 5th floor? What do you mean? And she gave me a tip. She goes, check out this book and just be ready for that question. And it was a book by an author here in Colorado. His name is Tommy Spalding. And it's called It's Not Who You Know. And I, quickly got that on, Amazon and read a little bit about it. And I think as we talk about referrals to others, our word gardens, knowing who we are, knowing the people that are important in our business lives, always know who you have on your 5th floor. And that is that person that no matter when you call them, day, night, they will be there for you and you will be there for them. And he goes through the process of, the 1st floor is maybe it's that person at the coffee shop at Starbucks or wherever. It's like, hey, how you doing? Good. Then you move to the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And I think as we navigate, the changing dynamics of real estate, and we, want to keep ourselves visible and have thought leadership, and we want to be perceived as an expert, knowing those people that are always on your 5th floor can be so important and so impactful. And if you have a chance to, take time to ponder those people, maybe they are the lenders and the others that we cannot do this business without, and let them know how you feel about them, that will in turn come back to you.
It totally does. And my favorite lenders, thinking about it now, I've hung out with them doing different things outside of real estate and transactions. And we actually have established relationships. And I think that's the beauty of this business. It's such a fascinating way to look at it. And I feel if you're unpacking and kind of, I don't want to say labeling people, but drawing out their attributes, if a person's on there this is my sister, brutally honest, will tell you exactly how it is, that's the person I would share my bio with and say, I want your opinion. She loves me to death, but and if you say, I want your opinion on this, she'll say, do you really want my opinion? And if you say yes, you better buckle up because it's coming. If she doesn't like it, you will know it. But the beautiful thing is you then know what to change. You know what to address. And you know that if you find those right people, you know that they're telling you and sharing it out of love. They're actually doing it to help you become a better person. They're not doing it to just cut you down. And they're distinctly 2 different people. And so finding that right one who's honest, but actually nurturing it's important. And if you find just one, you found a ton of them, because they're far and few between of people who will really tell you.
I think one of the hardest things to ever do is to craft a compelling biography for yourself.
Yeah.
We're too personal. We're too connected. We're too close to the source. And I think, though, if you can find those other trusted folks in your community, in your sphere, and on your team, somebody, your sister, what you'll come back with is a product that you'll be so comfortable and proud sharing with others. But I would recommend to every single person listening to this podcast in real estate, go back and look at your biography. It's the first thing that someone's going to read about you, and everybody is going to the internet first. So they're going to see you either on LinkedIn, they're going to see you on your team page, they're going to find you, and they're going to read about you. And if it's filled with too many adjectives and too much fluff and a bunch of accomplishments that may or may not be relevant, they're just going to swipe to the next.
In this society, we've learned to filter very quickly. And not for nothing, but they're going to get your name somehow, somewhere, maybe from a podcast or a friend or a colleague, somebody. They're going to put your name into the computer, and then they're going to see what drops down. And that goes back to the PR and having all the SEO and having your name just populated. They may not look at those articles, but if they see NBC next to your name or Wall Street Journal, it's automatically going to give you some credibility. And then when they read your bio, which they're inevitably going to do, and they're probably not going to read it. Here's the other thing. They're going to skim it. They're going to do exactly what you do. They're going to read the opening sentence and kind of glance through it, look at the picture, and go and move on to the next thing. And so in an ideal world, you just want to cover as much space as you possibly can out there. That's my piece of advice.
Also, I want to add on to that. And because the bio is the written communication, the photograph is the visual communication. Take a good look at your photo. Does it look like every other real estate agent out there? Hands folded, looking stern, looking like, I laugh when I see I see the phone, I see the whatever's, and you really need to find that sweet spot that looks like you, feels like you, but conveys who you are. And there are people that I've looked at their profiles and I'm like, you can put them all up on the same page and you can click, no, yes, no, oh, no, absolutely not, yes, maybe, oh, maybe, I don't know, I'll give that one a heart, I'll come back to that one. And it's really about, and that can be brutally honest too. Have somebody look at your photographs, look at your proofs, say, of these 5, which one feels authentic, which one feels warm, who do you feel, who's going to say yes to that person? And that is a huge piece of our marketing, our public relations of our brand, is how we show up in photography. And I would highly recommend having 2 or 3. One that might be a little bit more straightforward, a little bit more professional, something that's out in nature, doing something you love, maybe something that is with family or your dog or your whatever. But we have got to strip away the facade of the real estate agent photograph.
Yeah. And you have to update them. Don't let them age out so they're like 20 years old.
I'm sure we've all bumped into that before. You meet somebody in person and you're like, I don't think this is you.
You're like, huh. My hair is graying so fast. I feel like I have to keep updating them now, like every year.
Yeah. Probably.
Pam, I'm going to bug you and say, when you have a minute, go to my profile. If you hate anything about it, you just be brutally honest. You let me know.
I will. Well, somebody just did it to me recently. And I think, you got to have a little bit of a thick skin about it. And she blatantly said, nobody cares where you were 20 years ago. And I said, but that's a part of me. That was a huge part of my career in California. And as I said to her, everybody knows this name. And she says, no, they don't. Just take that out, take this out, shorten this, concise this, cut.
Yeah.
I did. And I'm feeling much better about it. And I also know that what might have been important to me is not currently important to the people that I need them to think about working with me. So yeah, I'll take a look. I also want to just share with all your, everyone listening, the audience, that if anybody has a real, a quick question about how do I approach this? How do I pull a media list? What tools do you use? what's, free to the public relations sphere out there. I'm more than happy to receive an email or a text and, shoot back some of my best tips, because we're all in this together. And you don't need to be an expert in public relations. You don't need a degree in communications and marketing to use these tools to your benefit. You started by saying, wow, you must have such an advantage. Well, there's people that have a background in finance. They probably have a great advantage in certain capital markets in certain areas of our industry. But I love to share. And I love to share, the 20 plus years of being in the PR field and how I use it in my own practice. So
I love that.
You don't have to be an expert. It's not that difficult, but you do need to be consistent. And you have to have you got to find your authentic voice.
And that is the whole spirit of this entire podcast. And I love that you shared that. The whole point of this is to just, a rising tide lifts all ships. And so if we can get on here and collaborate, and somebody can just take an idea in their market, wherever it is, New York, Connecticut, Florida, wherever it is in the nation, and they can just improve by even 1%, I consider all of this 100% worth it. It's so important for us to have a place to collaborate and just share, because the reality is you and I will never compete for the same piece of business, ever, never, ever. We're in completely different markets, but we can complement each other's business, and I can bring you business at any moment, and you can bring me business at any moment through referral. And so it only makes sense to collaborate.
Somebody told me the other day, and I'm so happy he told me. He said, one, you're like a silent agent. Sometimes you don't tell people straight up that you are in real estate. And I thought to myself, I had to go away and really think through that. Why do I not? And I know there was another guest you had that mentioned in the early stage of her career, she felt that the real estate profession did not have that same level of credibility or that same level of respect, perhaps, that other professions had. PR professionals have always also had that same, are you a publicist? Are you that spin doctor? Oh, that's that flack person that just creates, bogus news. If we use the proper tools in PR to share all the value that a real estate agent brings to their clients and to the market, we lift up the profession, we educate others. And that is another huge piece of why I think every single real estate agent in the country should use the solid tools of PR, because yes, we have national lobbying. Yes, we all know we bring great value, but there's still a lot of education that can be done. And as I, continue to move along in my career path, this is a big piece of what I want to do. I want people to understand what it takes to be a licensed realtor in California, Colorado, Texas, Florida, Connecticut. The education and the knowledge and what we bring to our buyers and sellers. So remember, when you're thinking about how could I craft that story, don't negate the business press. The business press is your friend. And there is a fantastic tool. It's called Quoted, and I'll happily share that link. You can subscribe to that, and you can look at it every morning, and you'll find countless journalists looking for a story tip or an expert opinion. It takes a little bit of time to get in there and sort through all the pitches and queries that are not relevant to you, but you will find some nuggets and just, pitch away.
I love that. There was another one that I was subscribed to, and I would get the email literally every morning. These different authors or journalists were putting together an article, and they needed help with XYZ, and I would fill them out. I filled out hundreds of them. Every once in a while, one or two would hit, and they would be great publications. And then once it's published and you're in this national paper, and to your point earlier, your name and bio, the whole link is there. You get to share that on your social media, and you're like, hey, this is amazing. I I am the volunteer mom of the school. You get to shout it out.
I did shout that out in my local social because, it was a really sweet moment in time. I've won other awards, but I think that one, in that moment with my little fourth grader, that really, that made me very happy. She's a lot older now, but she still thought that the sign that was bedazzled was pretty cool.
That is, I love it.
Just to kind of go back to some of the key points of, 1, don't be afraid of PR. 2, it is your friend. It's a very powerful tool. It's part of your overall marketing mix. It goes along with everything else you're doing. But when you do have that story placement in print, online, on broadcast, on a podcast, if you are, on a morning television show, make sure you take the time to monetize that and to share it. Absolutely leverage that content, leverage that coverage, because it will pay dividends over and over and over. And then you will have, your personal brand will just continue to grow. And it will, it'll just keep coming back to you. And don't be worried if you're not doing it, the way a big agency might do, or a big public relations firm. There's, there's some right and wrongs, but it's kind of an art and a science to that. I kind of leave it with the art and the science, but most importantly, it's being a good storyteller and building relationships. And we do that all day, every day.
Exactly. We're already doing it. And I think on that note, that is the perfect way to end cap this episode. So Pam, thank you so much for your time. I feel like this episode is, I want to go back and re-listen to it because I feel like you've dropped so many great little nuggets throughout it the whole time.
Oh, thank you. It's, it's a big, it's part of who I am, and it's what I've loved doing for a long time. And so I'm happy that I can share it with everybody who's listening today, and will continue to listen as you grow what I believe is one of the greatest podcasts out there. So more power to you, Shawn, and thank you for having me, and thank you for spending this great hour with me.
Thank you.